Welcome to Conversations with Cox and Kielseth, and to be more specific, that is filmmaker Alex Cox and myself, film curator Pablo Kielseth. Alex will join us by phone from his home in Oregon, while I sneak away from my office to call him from one of the projection booths used by the International Film Series, which has been screening foreign and independent movies at CU Boulder since 1941. We will keep our chats to about 20 minutes as we discuss whatever movie-related topics grab our fancy. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, action.
Well, that's great. And it's so nice to actually have the opportunity to talk to the both of you at the same time. People who have been listening to this podcast know you, Alex, of course, but Tod, you are a force to be reckoned with. And I just actually, I just went to your Wikipedia page today for the first time ever. And it was fun.
Oh my gosh, I haven't looked at it in years. What does it say? Does it talk about my experience at the Clown University and things like that?
No, it's your credentials as a writer, a publisher, a producer, a screenwriter, and it only briefly gets to some of your acting cameos, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah. But no, I mean, we're sort of here today in part because, well, let's just start off everything by saying, obviously we love books. We are of yeah. And Tod, you've done far more toward this love of books than most normal people, because you've got your Exterminating Angel Press, right? So
Yep. We love books. We love books. We love the printed word. We love words.
Did you see by any chance how the Alaska School Board voted to remove 5 books?
We did. We saw that indeed. The Great Gatsby, Catch-22. What were the other ones, Pablo? Those were the two I remember.
I know why The Caged Bird Sings and Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison.
Right.
And
supposedly because those were anti-white.
Huh.
Yeah.
And what was the 5th one?
The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien.
Oh, about Vietnam. Yeah. Huh.
So they were all deemed to be inappropriate because they contained mentions of rape, incest, or racial slurs, profanity, misogyny, that kind of thing.
We can't have that.
They should read the Greek myths, boy.
Yeah. So, and we're kind of dovetailing this conversation about books in general to be relevant to the fact that if you go to the International Film Series website, you can actually go and rent and view through what they're calling a virtual screening room. I kind of prefer the term theatrical on demand. I think that's probably the best term for it. But there's a documentary that is called The Booksellers. It's directed by D.W. Young. It was executive produced, and the voiceover was provided by Parker Posey, which I thought was really appropriate, as I kept thinking that the subject of this documentary, which is about antique books and collectors and a quirky lot, to be sure, how a lot of that material could easily be mined by somebody like Christopher Guest when thinking of such of, some movies of his like Waiting for Guffman or Best in Show.
Yeah. Who would play Fran Lebowitz? Let's see.
She might just have
She's
to
in there. She's all the way through there, isn't she?
She might just have to be brought on as herself. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
This is as I was telling you, Tod, I think this is, as somebody who used to work in a bookstore and I still carry with me all the books that I've read throughout my life, and I love revisiting them when I can. But
things Pablo carried.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that this is a very unique strata of books. And I think, Tod, you were telling me that at the half-hour mark, I think that's when there was the auctions going on for and selling the books for $28 million to Bill Gates. That's when Alex checked out. Is that right, Alex?
That's when Alex said, yeah. He said, no rich people buying books. No, I'm out of here. But he has a thing about rich people, which personally,
love them.
Personally, he'd love to eat them, I think. I think that is one of the things I love about him, is how he hates rich people. But in this case, I think it sort of formed a sort of energy field where he couldn't actually see what was being said by the documentary, which at first I was, oh God, not another thing about New York in the book world, right? But, and Fran Lebowitz, oh, we know it's going to be about New York, boy. But the thing is, they are so adorable, these people. They're really worth, as you say, it would be great for a Christopher Guest mockumentary, but they are just adorable. And the reason why they are adorable is because what they are in love with is not the book that Bill Gates paid $1 gazillion for. They are in love with the fact that these things are artifacts of humans, that human beings owned them, made them, loved them. That's what attracts the wide variety of people that are interviewed in this documentary. And that's what I found so touching and moving and really worth celebrating. The other thing I really loved about it was the younger people who are involved in it, who got involved in it. They started collecting books about comics. There's the Black Rare Book Collector who started collecting books that by Black authors. There are the women who started collecting books by women. They're expanding what the rare book world means. And they're expanding the idea that it's not about rare books. It's about things that you love, and it's about being human in the end, which is really what the love of books is about. It's about being human. I mean, nobody else writes them. My lovely dogs don't write books,
Yeah.
We are human beings, and that's what we do. And we love the things that we do, and we celebrate the things that we do. So I was totally won over by it. And I was really, and the other thing I loved was at the end, the young woman who is so dynamic in it, who's the rare book dealer, she says whenever she's hanging out with the older book dealers, they're all, oh, it's all over. It's never going to happen again, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I'm the only one who's going, I'm the young person. And I'm saying, no, there's a whole new universe of loving books and people who are going to love books. And it reminded me that the small town that we're in right now just was going to open right before the COVID virus hit. A young woman is opening a record store. Records, LPs.
God bless her.
God bless her. And I think she's in her late 20s, So I do not think this whole thing about how ebooks, I laughed at it. You remember, Pablo, I laughed at it when they said ebooks were going to take over the printed book. And I said, there is absolutely no way that is going to happen. And I loved when Fran Lebowitz said, when I'm on the subway,
yeah,
who's reading on Kindle? It's all people 60 and older. And all the people who are reading hard copy paperbacks are all 40 and younger. Right. And mostly in their 20s.
That was a great quote. I think the other great quote that comes to my mind is, and I think it might have also been Fran Lebowitz talking about how when if she ever saw a book in a trash can, for her, it was like seeing the head of a human being just in the trash can.
Yeah, that was good.
It's totally true. It's completely true. I've had books that have completely fallen apart, and I'm like, it just pains. I end up having to burn them like ceremonially because I can't, with respect, because I can't just throw them away. It's even though they don't even hold together anymore. You can't read some of the pages, all of that. So,
I will speak to Alex's bit, because just for those listening, if you do watch this documentary, do get past the auctioning and the rich people who are, because there is very ostentatious, conspicuous consumption, and some of the materialism is extreme, where it's all about I am better than you because I own the only book of this, But once you get past that, I just want to, speaking for myself, I think I have my own hero in this documentary, and it was that young woman with a Joy Division T-shirt. And as everybody else here, she's very passionate about everything. But the fact that she's got a very unique, youngish, just good energy. And then she's like, oh yeah, and no kids, yay! And I was like, that won me over completely for her. She was my hero in that documentary.
It really, that split between the rich people who are buying these things as a matter of prestige And the people who are working really hard on very slim margins because they love the book so much. It's kind of a metaphor for the split that's going on in the culture right now.
Yeah.
You know, where are we going to be more human, and are we going to be more concerned about things that we love and things that matter? Or are we just going to be endlessly fighting over who's going to be better than who else, and have to have somebody on top and somebody on the bottom? Right. So, and that was really what I got out of it by the end of it, was that the filmmakers obviously had that in mind too when they were editing. So I would urge everybody to get past what made Alex say, okay, I'm out of here. I don't want to watch another rich person buy another expensive book. So hang on. Keep going to the humans.
So tell us a little bit about what it's like for you as a publisher right now. And I mean, you know, obviously for an independent publisher, as you mentioned, you have very slim margins. How are you dealing with the current pandemic situation?
Well, everything's pretty much up in the air. Everything has been up in the air for independent publishers for quite a long time, but this has really done it. Nobody knows what's going to happen to the distribution channels. Those poor rare book dealers, they are not going to be anytime soon having those book fairs where they can actually talk to the people who want to see the books and hold them before they can actually buy them. I mean, it's all going to move online, which is where half the fun disappears at that point. I have no idea what is, I mean, honestly, Pablo, I am literally thinking about how to rejig everything. I'm moving over more into audiobooks. I'm going to be selling off my own website, I think, rather than doing through a distribution network. Honestly, nobody knows.
Yeah.
It's completely up in the air, and my fellow publishers feel the same way. So I honestly don't know how to answer you. You know, the bookstores are closed, the libraries are closed.
And that's where you would go. You would go to these physical locations when you'd come out with a new book. You'd travel. You would carry along a bunch of books and do presentations or read from the books, and you know all that that's gone right now.
That's over. Yeah. And I suspect it's going to be greatly reduced, if not completely over, bit by bit. That's what I suspect. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Right.
You just have to surf it, you know, just like everything else. I mean, we're at such a critical moment in history that this documentary, which was just made, is going to be looked at as a historical artifact, because that world has completely been destroyed by this. And it's going to be rebuilt. And it's going to be rebuilt by those young people in the documentary. And they are going to find unique ways to build it that we haven't thought of yet. Hooray. Go guys.
Right. I think one of the things that we should call attention to is the fact that we're dealing with a documentary about books, actual things that have been around for hundreds of years, encapsulating ideas from, you know, just all kinds of times and cultures, etc. But in an age when everything can get wiped out in terms of digitally, like if it was only existing in a digital format, and suddenly there's no server where that digital thing might have existed, you know, because every time people talk about the cloud, they seem to forget that it's not a ephemeral thing that's always there. Those are just computers somewhere. And
they forget how much energy it uses to keep it going.
And if those computers...
When those energy sources go down, boy, that all goes down too.
And yet, what will still remain? What will still exist? It's those books that were written, whether it was just a year ago or 2 years ago or decades ago or hundreds of years ago. Those books are actually still there, and they can still be discovered.
And you've just put your finger on why I went into book publishing in the first place. And I remember Alex got very annoyed one day and said, "This is very annoying. Your books are going to last much longer than my films are going to."
Well,
he was very annoyed. And I said, "Well, you know, only just figured that out, huh? I mean, I was thinking, you know, because the big thing for me is..."
I'm going to step in here as a bridge, just in Alex's defense, but also as the person who is responsible for his 35 millimeter prints in the archive that's ensconced in a safe place in Denver. His films will also be safe for as long as books are safe, I'd like to think.
No, I was thinking in terms of longevity of the material, though, because when we were making Revenge's Tragedy, we went and saw like the original printed edition of Revenge's Tragedy, which was printed in 1607.
A rare book.
You know, and I don't think, even though it is true that the university takes very good care of its possessions, its archival possessions, but I think the books in the library are going to outlast the films, the hard drives, the videotapes, everything.
Hey, the books in people's attics are going to outlast them. The books in people's basements with the mold all over them.
They're not going to outlast them.
Want to bet?
Yeah, the mold. No one's going to look at horrible old books covered in mold.
I do all the time.
As you both know, my neighbor passed away recently, and his best friend gave me some of his albums. And so the neighbor, it was a shut-in, and there was a lot of water damage and black mold in the house. So all these records that I'm kind of going through, they're all covered in mold. But the interesting thing is, so I'm just going one by one, taking like 2 or 3 a day, and then I'll swab them out with alcohol and just for to get the mold off of the covers. But the records themselves, the vinyl itself, they're in great shape, really, really. So
That's
yeah,
nice.
Obviously I've been an analog guy for as long as I can remember, but in a time like this, all of a sudden, analog is really coming to the rescue, isn't it? It is things like books, which we can read while we are self-quarantined, and also movies, which we can watch while filmmakers cannot make movies. But it's ironic that which is keeping us sane are things like movies and books and music. And to be able to have a sense of control as to the fact that you have it on your shelf and it's not going to be taken away from you because some meteorite comes by and kills all the control centers.
Or Amazon decides to take it off your Kindle without mentioning it to you.
Because the governor of Alaska doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are good reasons, as eccentric as collectors might seem. I think we all kind of collect the things that we like and that are important to us. And this is a good time to reflect on what it is that is important to you as you're trying to hunker down and you're not having as much social interactions as you normally would. What are you tapping into to keep yourself sane? And boy, wouldn't it be a good idea to be able to have that, whatever that is, be it a movie in a Blu-ray or a DVD or a Laserdisc or a VHS or a book or a record on vinyl or a cassette tape or a CD. Wouldn't it be a good thing to have all those things on a shelf that you can access when you have to hunker down at a time like this? So we are all, in a way, or should be, collectors to some extent of the things that we care about, I think.
Well,
right?
I think what you're saying is very true, which is that it's always a good idea to think about what we really love and what we can do without.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But I think the thing is we can enjoy all of those things, but there's also these communal activities that are also pleasant, like going out to bars and going to the IFS.
Going to the IFS. Yes.
I used to be so jealous of the micro, the craft beer, the bars where the craft beers were served and how, and I know I've told this to you several times, Todd, but I was just like, boy, there is one thing you cannot just buy online or stream, and that is a good craft beer when you go out to buy it. You're always going to want to go someplace and have that beer with, good company. And yet here we are, and those places are suddenly having a very hard time because they can't open. Some of them had restaurants, and so they can do curbside pickup, and they're they're sort of staying open.
Our local brewery here is doing pickups of crowlers. A crowler is like a tin can that's half a growler, so you can still get fresh beer. It's expensive, but it's a local brewery.
I could shout to the person who was selling it to Alex that I would do her tarot cards when all this was over. I had promised her I would do her tarot cards, and now I can't.
We wait until that day when we can get back together in person. But until then, hey, I just want to say this is perfect. It was so nice to have the both of you. We've reached our 20-minute mark, so it's time to sign off. But what a pleasure to have Todd. You should come visit us more often here on this podcast.
I'd be delighted, and I can't wait to have a beer in person with you again, Pablo.
At this point, I might have to make the drive. You guys, how many miles is that? You guys know it. You've done it.
Oh, it's hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Yeah. Yeah, but we can tell you all the best places to eat and all the best places to stay on the way.
Right. Well,
there's not many good places to eat.
Oh, I don't know. The Chinese restaurant in Ely is surprisingly good.
The beans and the Chinese
The green beans, it's not on the menu. Anybody who goes to Ely, go to the Chinese restaurant and order, just say, can I have the green beans with garlic, with lots of garlic? It's really good.
They might not be open right now, but, hopefully, God is willing, as Todd would say, hopefully they'll be open soon. All right. Well, listen, we should talk again soon. And at this point, I'm just going to say how nice it was to hear your voices. But it's time to call it a wrap, I think.
Always a pleasure to hear yours, too.
Virtual hugs.
All right. Virtual hugs to you, Todd. Take care.
And cut. Okay, that's a wrap.
Thanks again for joining Alex Cox and myself today. I'd like to thank Jason Phelps for handling the audio and Ted Thacker for letting us use the intro to his song, The Ballad of Slim Cessna, for the musical cues that bookend these conversations.